One river, three brothers, 250 years. EC250 Inc. proudly presents the Sesquicentennial Commemorative Celebration of Ellicott City, Maryland.
I think we're about ready. Thank you guys for hanging around. And I do want you to know that we care about you so much. All of you are in the shade and I'm in the sun. But that's okay. I'm headed to the beach after this, so a little bit of sun right now could help. So, in addition to the VIPs that we recognized earlier at the ribbon cutting, I also want to recognize former County Executive and State Senator Alan Kittleman, who's joined us here today. Alan, thank you. And the EC250 welcomes everyone here today as we celebrate the new Mary Jerdone Coleman Garden and the partnership that made it a reality. I'm Victoria Goodman, founding board member of EC250, and I'm joined by my fellow board members here, Mr. Ed Lilly, Grace Kubasik, Ron Peters, Tricia Zajura. It's hard for us to believe. We're almost halfway through Ellicott City's 250th anniversary celebration. Board members and members of the steering committee, our honorary committee, a member who is also joining us here today, Miss Betty Jacobs, is here. She's on our honorary committee. We've been working closely together for 5 years to bring this together, and today's celebration is one of the signature pieces of this sesquicentennial year. We have so many people to thank. Who I'm going to thank today is just a very small portion of them. But first and foremost, I would like to mention our title sponsor, Playground Studio and Gallery. They're down on Main Street, and through their generous contribution very early on, they gave us the confidence to go forward and make things happen. Thanks to, as I said before, the generous funding we received from Howard County Executive Dr. Calvin Ball and the Howard County Council. Along with a matching grant from the Maryland Heritage Area Authority, we've been able to program an entire year of educational and entertaining activities to celebrate this special year. Add to that a very generous anonymous donation, as well as a significant contribution from the Nabali family. And we now are, believe it or not, well on our way to bringing an original EC250 musical to the stage in December. You'll hear a little bit more about that in just a few. Our community partner organizations have done so much to make this sesquicentennial year a success. And the Mary Jerdone Coleman Garden is the perfect example. EC250 would like to take this opportunity to thank 3 people and 2 organizations who have played a very, very important role in making it all happen. Without each of their contributions, there would be no garden. So I would really like to ask for Caitlin Chamberlain and Riley Goodman and Howard County Recreation and Parks, and Betty Jacobs, president of the Howard County Garden Club, to join me here. Please come up, guys. On behalf of the board, we want to thank you for all that you have done. And this is just a very, very small token of our appreciation. So again, Riley, Caitlin, and Betty, thank you so very much. Thank you for everything. Thank you. And I'm sure any of those 3 after this would love to talk to you more about the garden, the history and the botany and the plants. So if you're interested, please, I'm sure they'd be happy to talk more about it. Some other important people, not that all of you aren't important, but some other people who are here with us today whose early support for our EC250 efforts helped make the whole year a reality. And I'd like to welcome them, and I want to invite them to say a few words if they like. First, Delegate Courtney Watson.
Thank you, Vicki. It is really a pleasure to be here today, and I want to make sure that we recognize how much work putting on EC250 is for an entire year. Our board members and our steering committee just have made this their passion. And all of you that are here today to learn more about the history of Ellicott City, that you can share with your families and your grandchildren and children to help preserve the legacy of what Ellicott City has been, is, and will be to the future residents. I want to let you know that Senator Katie Fry Hester and I both, while you're working on the history and the legacy of Ellicott City, we have been working hard to make sure that the infrastructure remains sound to be able to handle the more intense rainstorms that we're seeing in this modern day era. And as Shana Hernandez explained to you, there is an entire program and plan being worked on by the federal government, the state government, the local government, the Corps of Army Engineers, CSX. It's a very complex partnership of people, and I might add bipartisan, that agree that this is the way we should move forward in Ellicott City to preserve the town. So we're very excited about that, and we are getting the work done to make that happen. So I want you to know that the town will be protected in future years from what we've seen in the last decade or so of more intense rainstorms. So thank you so much to everybody, to all the organizers, and especially to Vicki for bringing us this beautiful weather.
I don't know, Courtney, I thought you were in charge of that. You did a good job if you were. So next, I would like to welcome and ask County Council Member Liz Walsh to say a few words. Liz.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, EC250, for this next of a series of amazing programs. This No Place Else town has something for every one of us to celebrate. And today it is for those of us who plant, who like to get our hands dirty, those of us who are optimists. That's who puts something in the ground and waits for it to grow into something beautiful. And that's what this town is, and that's what you're making it be again. I'm so grateful for the Garden Club of Howard County, for the Friends of the Patapsco Female Institute, and this beautiful weather. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, we feel pretty special because we have a couple of former county executives joining us today. And, you know, they and our honorary board member who can't be here, former county executive and Senator Jim Roby, they know better than anybody that investing in a historic site is no small task. The preservation of this historic site and the stabilization of the ruins, they were no easy task. And the cost, no small amount. So it's an honor for me to give one of those key individuals who saw the value of such an investment during her time in public office an opportunity to speak to you today. Please join me in welcoming former Howard County Executive and Delegate Liz Bobo.
Thank you. It looks just so great here. You know, I come by rarely, but from time to time, just detour, and it is just absolutely spectacular, the job that's been done. I grew up in what is now known as was known as the Edmondson Village area, and my dad had a brother who lived down on Ilchester Road, and he used to drive me out to visit my cousins. And so I dubbed this town Ellicott City because I was coming to see an uncle, and it's taken me a long time to let go of it. But there were several things that we did when I was in office that I feel really good about. And of course, you know, we all know, Alan knows, Courtney knows, you can't do it by yourself. You need all the elected people. But we, first of all, got the B&O Railroad Museum designated as a museum, the B&O Railroad, the very first railroad ride in the United States, not just in Maryland, but in the United States, from Ellicott City, from Baltimore out to Ellicott City. We moved speak into the microphone, please, my husband says. And since I do everything he tells me to do, that's what is that any better, honey? Okay, good. The railroad in Ellicott City was, you know, just a national model, a big deal national model. And we also, some of the things we did was we moved the log cabin that's down on Main Street now. It was on one of the side streets. And planning and zoning and public works got together and disassembled it and reassembled it there. We did the firehouse, and then the Patapsco Female Institute was something that we knew had to be preserved, but we didn't know how to go about doing it. So when I was on the county council for 8 consecutive years, there was a project that came down from the then county executive. I guess it was your father, Courtney, Ed Cochran, and Hugh Nichols, to restore the PFI, the Patapsco Female Institute. And the bill to do that was just absolutely astronomical. And every year, it was the first item to be dropped from the capital budget. And then when I became county executive and brought in a new planning director, he said, have you ever thought about stabilizing the ruins? And that's where the idea came from. It didn't actually get done until, well, yes, it does. I think it was finished while I was in office. And that, along with moving the log cabin, finding the bell to the old firehouse. We found the bell that had been missing for so many years, but getting this place preserved, although it was not done while I was in office, it's just one of the best accomplishments and that has been made in the Ellicott City area, I think. So to all of you who have worked on it, it's truly a delight to be here and to see it. And you, Vicki, and all that you're doing this year and all the people you're working with. It's now, I'll end by saying that I imagine most of you would agree with me that with every passing day and with the news that's going on in our nation and around the world, it's so important that those of us who have an opportunity to have a community like this with the history it has in our lives, it's so important that we recognize that it's a symbol of democracy and democracy succeeding and continuing. So it's not just the history of the place. The experience for me is the hope that it gives me for the future. So thanks for what you're doing with that.
Thank you, Liz, again, for the support that you gave very early on. And as I mentioned, preservation of historic sites, it's a real undertaking. And the county executives and the county council, they have a lot to balance out: education, public safety, when they're putting the budget together. And so I think it's remarkable that here in Howard County, that the sites that have been preserved are thanks to their foresight to see that there is a need to preserve that for the future. You know, I think it's only fitting that I also asked former executive Alan Kittleman if you want to say a few words, because, come on up.
I'll say ditto what Liz said.
Ditto what Liz said. Okay, Alan, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. You know, this is being recorded, Alan, so it's on record now. But thank you so much for being here. All right, so I think we can all agree what a lovely setting. And every time I'm here, I feel I've truly stepped back in time. So I'm hoping you feel a little bit like that today yourself. For me, it is the most beautiful of all of Ellicott City's historic landmarks, and its story, one of the most significant in the town's history. It was built in 1837 on land donated by the Ellicotts. Its halls were graced by students who traveled from across the country to learn here. Its most noted principal, Almira Hart Lincoln Phelps, challenged society's views on the treatment of women in the 1800s through her nonconforming science curriculum. Today, we are excited to share with you all a couple of special performances that commemorate and recognize the history made here on the hillside at PFI. We'll begin with a featured selection from one of our partners' projects, the Howard County Poetry and Literature Society, also known as HOCO Politso, partnered with EC250 and the Patapsco Heritage Greenway to collect poems that celebrate Ellicott City's commerce, landscape, people, and history. Their See-Through Poems project placed posters on display in merchants' windows along Main Street and encouraged visitors to take a poetry stroll and read the work. The poems are still on display through the end of the month, so there's still time for you to enjoy a poetic moment in town. One of the works featured in that collection is a long historical poem by the former headmistress here at Patapsco Female Institute, the learned and formidable Miss Phelps. A portion of the verse, entitled An Educational Home, will be read by Sarah Luckadoo, an actor, teacher, dancer, and stage fight coordinator for Howard Community College's Arts Collective, Red Branch Theater, and Drama Learning Center. Sarah?
An Educational Home by Almira Hart Lincoln Phelps. But come with us, up yonder steep ascent, where crowning the hill's crest, a mansion stands. Massive, its granite walls and pillars firm support its Grecian portico. Around hills rise o'er hills, while like a silvery thread, Patapsco's waters add a varying charm. That granite temple was erected there by private liberality and zeal for better education of the young. Let us approach the consecrated fane and view its inmates fair, who represent the different parts of our republic vast. For here, assembled in one common home, are daughters of the north and of the south. From snowy climes to where the fervid sun kindles a deeper glow upon the cheek, from the sun rising to the verge extreme of Osage Mountains and Pacific Shore. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. That was beautiful. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Susan Hobby and Hoko Polizzo for helping us to celebrate the 250th anniversary and the history of Ellicott City through this very unique lens of poetry. Susan, thank you so much for heading that project up. Hoko Polizzo has also published a book, Through the Eyes of Poets, Ellicott City at 250, that includes this poetry collection, as well as introductions that offer historical background. They brought some copies today to share, so make sure to visit their table just behind you. Well, yes, Miss Almira Hart Lincoln Phelps wrote poetry. She also published the foremost textbooks of her time on botany. In fact, those books were said to have a major hand in the spread of botany as a hobby or scholarly interest for women in the 19th century. Almira was many things, but in looking back at her life, the word that comes to my mind is enigma. And you may think the same after listening carefully to our next performance. Today, we are happy to share a sneak peek from the upcoming musical On National Road, celebrating the 250th birthday of Ellicott City. Joining us is Katie Brooks to sing Almira as she looks back from the present at Almira Hart Lincoln Phelps, headmistress here at Patapsco Female Institute from 1841 to 1856. You know, people are complicated, and Almira was no exception. She was ahead of her time and simultaneously a product of her time. Difficult, tumultuous times. When we peel away the past, we uncover more layers than ever imagined. Get ready to throw preconceptions out the window. These were real people.
Almira, you frowned on finishing schools for girls that stunted young lives just begun. A gilded cage where songs were sung and French was spoken with permission. Needlework sewed up a web that tied up girls' lives instead. You wanted equal education. Almira, you had a vision. You could see what others could not see. Almira, you made a difference. You could see a way that life should be. Almira, at Patapsco Female botany, chemistry on this very hill. Not just to make a better cook, you turned your lectures into books. The rigorous academics we learn still. But, Almira, what were you thinking? You supported the Union and tried to save Lincoln. Yet, you opposed abolition. You called slavery a fatal curse, yet hired slaves. Does that make it worse? Almira, you are making my head spin. Almira, you had a vision. You could see what others could not see. Almira, you made a difference. You could see a way that life should be. But, Almira, how could you be so blind? You opposed suffrage? Were you out of your mind? Joining the Anti-Suffrage Association. You fought against our right to vote, then worked a lifetime to promote a woman's equal education. Almira, you make me crazy, though what to us is clear, to you was hazy. You were progressive, innovative for your time. No one sees it all. Everyone stumbles, everyone falls. I'm glad I took today to make this climb. Almira, Almira, you had a little sliver of a wider vision. You could see what others could not see. Almira, you made a difference because you saw a way, because you saw a way, because you saw a way that life should be.
Thank you, Katie. And Mr. Jesse Baxter, our producer. And of course, we want to give a big shout out to the woman behind the idea for our musical and the lyricist, and one of our very strong supporters, Miss Ellen Nabali. Ellen, stand up. Please, stand up. And that's just a sneak peek. That's only one of the songs that you'll hear from On National Road when it premieres at the Horowitz Visual and Performing Arts Center at Howard Community College in December. It promises to be an entertaining ride that will take you on a trip through Ellicott City and Howard County history from the days of Charles Carroll of Carrollton to Jim Rouse. Tickets go on sale in October, so make sure to visit EC250.com for more details as the year progresses. Well, it appears as though we have another special guest that is making her way through the ruins to join us. And if I'm not mistaken, it may even be Miss Almira Hart Lincoln Phelps herself. And she may have a few thoughts of her own to share with you. Almira?
Good morning, and thank you for this honor. I am Almira Hart Lincoln Phelps, born Almira Hart, married to Samuel Lincoln, an untimely death, leaving me a widow, but then I married John Phelps.
Can't hear you.
Well, I'm not used to all this modern technology. I'm sorry. I was born one of 16 children. My sister Emma was my primary teacher. Emma eventually started Troy's Female Seminary in New York. She married John Willard, also a teacher at a boys' seminary. And at 16, I left home to live in their home with two other teachers from John's school. And this is where I learned that boys' education and girls' education were vastly different. Fortunately, I took advantage of all the men in the household who tutored me and eventually went off to work at several schools. I was in Pennsylvania, I was in New Jersey, and my last husband, John Phelps, a great supporter, went along with me to help run the schools, eventually landing me here in 1841. This was quite a sight when we arrived, and I will read to you from my own recollections of the time. In October 1841, a weary company of travelers were climbing the steep ascent which leads to our granite edifice that, like some feudal castle on the Rhine, overlooks the surrounding country. The hectic flush of decay had passed over the landscape, and from the old forest trees upon the hillside and mountains, the autumnal blast were strewing withered leaves upon the ground, preparatory for the returning to the native earth. A storm which had met the travelers on their journey still lingered on the horizon, and the dark, heavy clouds seemed to weep as if in harmony with the scene. The pathway up was tangled with briars and rough with broken fragments of rock, and around the mansion were heaps of unremoved stones which had been left there on the erection of the building. In front of our classic portico, at the base of the massive granite steps, a drove of ill-favored swine was rooting up the ground. No welcome of friends awaited the travelers as they entered their new home. Gloomy and desolate seemed the spacious apartments. And so my husband and I provided funds to enhance the building, adding the 2 additional wings, one of which had a chapel. I have a lot of faith in God. And the other side, apartments for the inmates. I put a high emphasis on mathematics, chemistry. We had a geological cabinet. We had chemical apparatus. Not to downplay the importance of etiquette and the feminine side, but it was of secondary nature. I included a physical education program. Students were required to walk 1 mile every day around the grounds. As mentioned before, I did write lots of books. My favorite were the botany books. So I'm excited today for you to share in the garden and see and learn, hopefully, something. The girls here were between the ages of 12 and 18, and my challenge to them was to do better and be better than you were when you arrived here. And I asked that they did not make any bad habits while they were here. Instead, they should fulfill their best in their homes. I also was preparing them to be teachers. Having been widowed twice, I knew the value of being able to support yourself. Many of the girls that taught, or students that were here, became teachers here at the Patapsco Female Institute. I will tell you one of my favorite passages is from one of the last books I wrote. I was here for 15 years, later retiring to Baltimore at the age of 62. Here is from Hours with My Pupils. The new Patapsco Institute opened encouragingly. Traveling from afar were students from Canada, the southern states, from the Atlantic and the Mississippi, even the Cherokee Nation. Bright young faces appear before me, a mass of heads with raven locks or flaxen curls, and bloom of health upon the rounded cheek. Their countenances are turned towards me in an attitude of attention. Here past 15 years of my life, and under my watch and care grew from small beginnings a large and flourishing institution numbering about 150 inmates, including pupils, school officers, teachers, and servants. In my declining years, I may indulge the thought that there were wives, mothers, teachers, ladies who can refer to the impressions derived by my instruction, that there might be a course of life dignified and useful, above the trivialities of fashion and folly, devoted to the study of trees and beauty, to the cultivation of the mind and taste, and to the doing of good to others, making happy those who come within the charmed circle of their influence. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy our campus today.
What an honor, Miss Phelps. And we're so glad you were able to return and be part of this celebration. And we certainly hope you approve of the new garden. So to conclude this formal part of today's celebration, we want to take you just a little bit east from this hillside to an even earlier time when a free black man often stood on his farmstead and looked to the heavens. Benjamin Banneker was one of Ellicott Mill's most renowned figures, a self-taught mathematician, astronomer, surveyor, farmer, and almanac publisher. Banneker was friends with the Ellicotts and lived his entire life just up from the mills in what is now called Oella. Former National Poet Laureate Rita Dove's poem, Banneker, will be read by Sean Sebastian Narr, an actor who has performed at the Kennedy Center, Woolly Mammoth Theater, Howard University, and Toby's Dinner Theater. Welcome, Mr. Narr.
Banneker by Rita Dove. What did he do except lie under a pear tree, wrapped in a great cloak, and meditate on the heavenly bodies? Venerable, the good people of Baltimore whispered, shocked, and more than a little afraid. After all, it was said he took to strong drink. Why else would he stay out under the stars all night? And why hadn't he married? But who would want him? Neither Ethiopian nor English, neither lucky nor crazy. A capacious bird humming as he penned in his mind another inflamed letter to President Jefferson. He imagined the reply, polite and rhetorical. Those who had been to Philadelphia reported the statue of Benjamin Franklin before the library, his very size and likeness. A wife? No, thank you. At dawn, he milked the cows and went inside and put on a pot to stew while he slept. The clock he whittled as a boy still ran. Neighbors woke him up with warm bread and quilts. At nightfall, he took out his rifle, a white maned figure stalking the darkened breast of the Union, and shot at the stars. And by chance, one went out. Had he killed? I assure thee, my dear sir. Lowering his eyes to fields sweet with the rot of spring, he could see a government's domed city rising from the morass and spreading in a spiral of lights. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. For those of you who have never had the opportunity to visit the Banneker Museum and Historical Park just up the road in Oella, I encourage everyone to go there. I believe it's next weekend, Colonial Market Fair. It's a wonderful event. And I will guarantee you, there is so much to learn about this man. You may think you know him, but there's a whole lot more I think you'll find out. So wonderful. It's wonderful to have someone as remarkable as we always refer to him. And I believe we have a song on National Road entitled The Remarkable Mr. Banneker, because he was truly remarkable. So thank all of you for joining us today, and we hope you've enjoyed this morning's presentations. And please continue to enjoy this special place, this lovely weather. Visit our partner tables. They're here with us today. We have cookies for you. Sobar is pouring some absolutely delicious refreshments over there. If you haven't had a chance to taste them yet, please do so. Howard EcoWorks has a selection of native plants for sale and a collection of local pottery, I believe. Rec and Parks is offering some tours, I think, if you can grab one of their people if you're interested in learning more. But they also, down there where the garden is, they have a table down there at one of the historical sites, the archaeological dig sites that they can talk to you about and learn more about kind of what happened when we tried to plant a garden up here. Howard Community College and Friends of PFI also have tables with a lot of information, as well as the Howard County Historical Society, one of our most supportive partners. We, of course, have a table. We have a brand new commemorative mug just for today that's for sale over there. It features a beautiful watercolor of PFI by artist Wiley Perkey. Also contains a portion of Almira's poem. Wiley painted the image of that building as it would have looked in the 1800s, and we thank him for his work. We're also selling raffle tickets for our Wiley Perkey print raffle. We have our new full-color brass EC250 logo keepsake. Just so you know, we have limited quantities of all of our commemorative items, so don't delay. If you see it and like it, get it now. We encourage you today to buy something because we also have some beautiful prints of the former Howard County Courthouse. It was done by a local Howard County artist, Dorothy Pumphrey. Dorothy's husband, many of you may remember, Merritt Pumphrey, served as clerk of the court for gosh knows how many years. So if you get a commemorative item from us today, a copy of that print is yours for free. So you can also make a donation, if you like, just for that print. And there's that nice breeze. All right, so let's give a hand to our music provider, Bach to Rock, as well as all of today's performers. And thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your morning. Beautiful job.